to be one of the hotter topics of the year that we do trainings on. And we tried to do a little bit of a spin on it. We're not going to go through every single thing that should be on a resume or specific things like that, but we're going to try to do some tips and tricks and focus on some of the things that you can do virtually as you prepare for your job search. So we wanted to start out with a little video that I felt was a little inspiring to get us going, as some of you guys are either going to be looking for internships and or full-time jobs coming up soon. So Melissa, did you want to hit it?
Yep. Oh, crap. Got it.
And we're not watching all 24 minutes of it. It's just a few minutes. So be patient with us.
Hello.
People say you can't change your career.
Oh, man.
You can't change your career at 35. You should have had it figured out by then. Oh my God, you're not married at 38? What the hell are you doing with your life? Who comes up with this stuff? I have no idea. But this stuff plagues so many people that I speak to. So many people open up to me and say, Jay, I just don't know how to change. Is it possible? What do you think this guy was before he became who he is? He used to be a PE teacher, right? Sports teacher at a high school. How about her? She was a telemarketer for 2 weeks. How about her? She applied to be a funeral director. Incredible. What happens in society is that we're clouded by the noise of family expectations, the noise of our parents, the noise of our brothers and sisters' expectations. I grew up in a family where you could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, right? Those were my 3 options. Anything else would just count me as a failure. I would have failed. So basically I failed, right? I'm standing up here in front of you all as a failure. I lived as a monk for 3 years. I committed career suicide. I turned down 2 amazing corporate job offers when I graduated from business school. I shaved my hair, I wore robes, and lived out of a gym locker for 3 years. And I did that because I thought I was going to do something meaningful, help impact the world. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. But more than becoming a monk, what that trained me to do was drop out of the rules. People told me, if you come back in 3 years, you'll never get a job. They told me, if you become a monk, people are going to think you're weird forever. No girl's ever going to talk to you. People told me, they were like, well, when you come back to real life, like, will you even be able to talk English? And people were just really weirded out. It's like, okay, I think monks speak English. And there was so much different noise that I was hearing when I made that decision. And the funny thing is, from having not been a monk for 4 years now, I'm in one of the most incredible periods of my life that I can ever imagine. And so much of that is based on the fact that I decided to do something different. So many of the times, our expectations are driving us in a certain scenario. We focus so much on life in what we want to be, as opposed to who we want to be. Because we've always been told that life and jobs and careers are like boxes and containers. There's only a finite number of options. There is no formula, there is no pattern. Do you know what you're passionate about? Do you know what you're good at? And you invest in that. People say follow your passions. I say forget that. Invest in your passion. If you're passionate about something, go and become the best at it. Go and do a course on it. Go and learn from the best. Go and find a mentor who's going to make...
Oh, awesome. Sorry. It'll load.
It was almost.
So how's
getting to the
everyone
end.
doing?
Andrea, you're muted.
I'm not muted. Am I muted now?
Yeah, it was almost at the end anyway, so.
That's what I was saying. It's
I'm going to
almost at the
continue,
end of it.
Andrea.
Okay, just move along. It's all right. Just click to the next one. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, what it talked about, and I know it was kind of hard to hear and get through it, was following your passions and looking for opportunities that might not be the typical graduate, go to the next job, do this, do that, right? I think that especially for you all, you have opportunities to go explore the world and do things that generations before you didn't have the opportunity to do. I know Megan on our staff had a wonderful opportunity to live abroad after graduation. And I think that that's something, that's not what this whole presentation is about, but I think it's really about broadening the scope of what you're searching for, right? And looking at things that you're passionate about to find something that you truly have a passion for throughout your life. Because if you're just working a 9 to 5 doing something that you don't like, trust me, it's gonna be a long life to live of doing something that you hate every single day for all those years. So what we're going to talk to you guys about today is, how do you get there? How do you figure that out? How do you prepare yourself for the opportunity when something arises? How do you have your resume ready to go, your cover letters, and how do you network, especially in times of COVID, to get an opportunity to jump on these jobs that are in your passion areas? So you're just not stuck doing something 9 to 5. So we're going to start talking about preparing your resume. So I'm not going to go literally through what a resume should look like for every single person. That's not what I want to do, but I want to give you some tips and pointers. You need to start early. Resumes take a long time. So we ask for a resume from you guys before you even get hired. So you all should have something that you submitted in the system. And to tweak and make that and update it regularly so you have a resume ready to go is a really good idea. You never know when an opportunity is going to arise to send it in. But I will tell you that I have probably spent getting my resume ready the first time to do like my first blown full job search was probably 40 hours that I spent. By the time I got critiques on my resume, sent it to my, supervisors to look at, tweaked it in different ways. It's not an easy task. So start early, especially now in times where we might have a little bit of time on our hands to do that. It might be a good thing to do. Also, I still keep an updated resume, right? Like, I'm pretty committed to our job, but we all are looking. There's potential, options out there for people. And so as I do things in my career or take on different responsibilities or change, I always try to keep that updated. So just because you have a job, don't file it away and forget about it for 5 years until you're looking for your next job, because 5 years from then, you're going to forget all these committees that you were on or things that you did or achievements that you had that would be really great to include on your resume. So the other thing is customize your resume to your field. So making sure you're looking at samples that are in your field. So a resume for a teacher probably looks very different than someone for an engineering job or a business job or whatever it may be. Fill in the hundreds of applications, but making sure that you're looking at what the field expects, because maybe I'm really great at looking at your resume for higher ed, but maybe I'm not the greatest to review your resume for engineering, right? You might need to find someone an engineering professor or something like that that might be better fit for looking at your resume for that. So fill in the white spaces. So we'll have an example here coming up that I'll talk about, but make sure that you're utilizing the space that you have on your resume when you are doing, when you're putting your resume together. The one thing I hate as we're hiring, and Katie and I could tell you, we look at hundreds of resumes when we hire people, is these big chunks of white space on resumes, that they're wasting all the space on the paper that they could be telling us amazing things about themselves. So in that, you have to be comfortable with what you submit too, right? So it's not just putting a whole bunch of crap all on a page to fill every white space. You need to make sure that you're comfortable with what your resume looks like. I've gotten resumes from people that are full of color and boldness and pictures. That is who they are. I probably wouldn't put my picture on a resume, but if you're a graphic designer, your resume may look like that, right? Like it has some sort of design flair to it. So I know that doesn't all go into the fill in the white spaces bullet, but I think it's the the overall look is what I'm getting at, of making sure that you're utilizing the space you have and that the look of it represents you. It's not just a form resume from Microsoft Word that we get over and over and over again with odd spacing in it. So the other kind of thing that I would talk to you about is don't list 400 skills and classes that you took, right? I see this a lot on resumes where it has, especially for some of you guys that are just starting off and only have maybe a couple hourly jobs, don't start to list 15 different class or every class that you took, English 101, English 102, you know. If there are some majors that you would want to list some skills and some classes that you took that's important, some engineering ones that have specific, or you know, computer science certifications or things like that. But try not to have a giant section where you're just having lists and lists and lists of skills and classes that you took. And then the other kind of big one that we wanted to point out was ask for critiques. Like I said, if you just wing it and do it yourself, it's not going to be the best resume. Also ask for critiques of people, like I said, in the field that you're going into, but also people that know you. So Katie might know that you're underselling yourself as a building manager on your resume. So, or you might have missed a couple things that you're really good at that you just didn't highlight in your cover letter, right? So it might be good to have one of us who knows you read it, but also somebody else in your skill set. So any other tips of resumes that we have? I think we're going to go down further, but anything else that comes to mind of the full-time staff before we go to the next slide?
You talk about PDFing?
Oh, I didn't talk about PDFing. That's a good, you want to talk about it, Katie?
Sure. So with different submissions, you've probably already seen when you submit a resume, you're usually not just emailing it. You are submitting it to some crazy online form. Maybe it's a national kind of clearinghouse, common app place. So you always want to save your resume as a PDF when submitting it, because most likely the way it gets opened, if it's a Word document, it's completely jumbled and formatted differently. Just like if you open a Word document from somebody, it looks different than what maybe they intended. So it's just, that's a lot of these things are teeny tiny details that show that you cared and that it mattered. And that's kind of, those little details are things that matter too. So from like a formatting perspective, because you're spending hours formatting it right, PDFing is the best way to make sure that it comes across correctly.
Well, and that's kind of a perfect segue. We'll get back into some tips too, but I don't know, Alyssa, do you want to hit it so we can see Maggie's? So Maggie Nelson, who used to work for us for many years, provided us her resume that we could show today. So Alyssa and I thought this was a pretty good resume, but when Maggie sent us it, we were really basically pissed off at her. Let's just be honest. Why? Because she sent it in Microsoft Word, and when we were looking at it, it had super funky text, big, and then there was some things small, especially.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
So we're looking at it, and it, like when it was in Word, it was on 2 pages. So that was one thing. So like it broke off her skills onto a separate page. Whereas when it was as a PDF like this, it's one nice clean page. But the big thing is that we're both looking at it, and I scrolled to the second page and I was like, how is a girl like Maggie, who we know is smart and a good worker, going to say that one of her skills is Microsoft Office suites, and that's going to be a completely different text and font? Like the size was different, the font was different, and I was like, what kind of BS is this? Like, come on, Maggie, you're better than this. But once we opened it as a PDF, it was totally fine, and it was like, okay, well, we just wrote her off as a potential hire, because how are you going to be proficient in Microsoft Office when you can't send us something that is all clean and nice looking? So we just thought it was really funny.
Yeah. So I don't want to bash Maggie. We love Maggie, right? And that's why we asked her to, she would think this is funny, because when we did open it, we were like, what are you thinking, Maggie? But there's some things on Maggie's resume here that are great. And there's other things that I would change. So this whole bottom skills section, a lot of white, there's some funky spacing. I would definitely work on that. If I were giving her critique, I would say that that's an area that she probably needs to develop a little more. But what I do love about it, it's very, for the most part, it's the formatting is pretty consistent. It's pretty clean. It's easy to read. Her bullets give a pretty good idea of what she did at each of those locations. The dates of her employment is very clear and easy and formatted nicely. It has all of her contact information on it that, you know, that we would need as a hiring person. So we thought this one was a pretty decent resume as an example to show you, but still, there's still tweaks that it needs, right? So, all right. So what we did for you all is we wrote you bullets for you to use on your resumes moving into the future. So we have some sample bullets for building managers, for reservations, for setup assistants, and then we did write some COVID ones as well. We're not saying you have to copy these word for word, but we wanted to give you an example of what you could use on your resumes for your jobs that you currently have. One of the things that I see over and over again with our current students when we help them with their resumes is that they undersell their positions in the student center. You guys have a lot of experience. Now with COVID, it's a little different. I get that, but I think there's still some really great things that you're doing to include on your resume. But I see it all the time. People will list all these classes that they're in, and then they like hardly mention that they're, you know, a setup assistant working in a diverse team and having client experiences and customer service. So they sell themselves really short. So when we're looking at the sample bullets here, obviously we highlighted kind of the action verb on it. So leading and managing, lead and manage a team of 5 to 8 student assistants. Prepare, so we talked about preparing audiovisual and setting up furniture and event spaces for upcoming reservations. I'm not going to go through all of these. We have these here as a reference for you. But even what we're doing today, so participate in staff trainings, diversity activities, and help to develop a positive work environment. You can talk about these things, that you attended staff trainings and that you learn different skill sets throughout that. I think that I know as a hiring manager, I would like to know that you're coming in as a well-rounded person who is willing to learn and be trained. That would be a highlight for me. So we'll go to the setup assistant ones. There's a few in here too about managing game room and esports facilities, maintaining the overall physical appearance of the building. Next one, Alyssa. Reservations, providing excellent customer service to the clients and assisting them with their event planning needs, utilizing the different softwares that we do, serving as the main contact information to assist patrons and answering their questions and providing resources for them. And then we did some COVID ones so that these are kind of separated that all of you guys could add onto your resume. So responsible for COVID-related policy procedure enforcement, doing regular rounds of the building, and engaging with patrons who are non-compliant. I think all of you probably have a story now about how you worked with somebody who wasn't really the nicest to you, right? And that you had to confront and work with to have them follow the policy. So anyway, more than anything, these are resources for you to have. We already wrote them. Please use them. Tweak them however you see fit, copy them, steal them, but they're here for you to use.
We will make the slideshow available to you guys afterwards so that you don't have to like furiously write them down right now or try and like take pictures and stuff. So we'll make this available.
All right, next one. So are there any other resume tips that you all have? I know Katie helped us out with a little the PDF, but anything else, any questions you guys have before we move on to cover letters?
I think a lot of people might know this, but I know back in the day, the order of the jobs, just make sure that the most recent job is usually on the top. I personally used to do the opposite, where the most recent would be at the bottom. I didn't know that, but I think just knowing the order, and like another thing is not having to put your high school and whatnot. That's not something necessary. I don't know, maybe a lot of people know that, but when I first started building my resume, that's a few things that I didn't know about.
I think for us right now, like if you're applying for our job and it's your you volunteered within your high school and that, because sure, totally relevant. But like Yakub said, if you're a senior and you're starting to graduate and you're moving on to your first full-time position, you probably don't need that you're a National Honor Society member from high school. So you got to gauge where you're at in your job searches to see what you should drop off the bottom of your resume.
Yeah, and some of you may know this, I've worked a lot of different jobs. Like I worked at Farmers Insurance taking insurance claims for 3 months of my life. That's not on my resume anymore. It was for a while when I just needed to fill space, but it was a 3-month blip. I hated it there. It was miserable. And so that video that Andrea showed, I watched the whole thing. It's really cool. I put it in the all staff group me chat. So if you want to watch it, you can. But like I hated it and it was miserable. And if someone does an actual background check and it comes up and they ask, I'm happy to talk about it, but I didn't learn anything valuable enough or contribute anything there that I think it's relevant for my resume when I'm looking for jobs. So it's just not there.
I do think too, I think Alyssa's, I'll use you as an example, but I remember one day Katie comes in and she's like, we're hiring for this. She's like, this resume is not like this Alyssa Watson isn't really the standard person that we would hire, but I kind of like her for some reason, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm interpreting the conversation correctly or remember it correctly, Katie, but Alyssa has had a different path to what we all do than a lot of us do, but she was able to transfer the skills, like the ability for us to look at the skills that she had in each of those jobs. Her resume made it clear enough that we were able to envision, wow, she guided people, customers and corporate groups in tours of the Grand Canyon. I could translate that as a hiring manager to coordinating corporate groups on our campus. If you can lead someone in a Grand Canyon or on whitewater rafting or whatever that is, like you could probably do it on our campus too. So her resume was at least clear enough and the bullets were clean enough that we were able to kind of not just look at the job title, but what she actually did and then translate it to the position we had available. So
I think that's a really good point because in my job search, when I took this job, I was looking at a couple different places and my resume specifically is like, we looked at that and thought, why would we ever hire her? But then we read the bullets and I spent a lot of time like changing what they were so that they made sense to the jobs I was applying for. They're like, but you could translate what you do to all of this. So just taking that extra time, like Andrea talked about, it's not a quick thing, but it really makes a difference because if you look at my resume, it just looks like I played outside for 10 years. Which is semi-true, but I also did a lot of like herding cats and taking, a big corporate group of people who don't speak English, rafting down a river. How do you tell them to paddle on the right side of the raft? Like that type of stuff. And it's the same as like dealing with Bacon Lady in the server. How do you tell someone, I'm sorry, you can't be doing that? They're relatable skills. So just learning how to craft those appropriately and asking for help with that is a big thing.
any other resume tips before we move on to cover letters or questions you all may have? Yes, Bacon Lady did elevate your customer skill set, your customer service skill set, Kyle, for sure. I think we have a lot of customers that probably have. So, all right. So we're going to talk about cover letters for a second, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on cover letters, but I don't know how to stress this enough for you all when you're searching. Each application needs its own cover letter. Do not just have one generic cover letter that you copy and change the name on the positions. I can't even tell you how many times as a hiring manager, I see like the wrong institution in the cover letter, the wrong job title. U of M has a system in which you have to put your cover letter and your resume together. We all the time get like a cover letter for Wayne State, and then under resume, it's a cover letter for U of M and their resume. So people make these silly mistakes all the time, but you need to really pay attention to your cover letters and prep them for the job itself. These easy apply links on LinkedIn, where you just click, you're one of thousands of applicants without anything specific to that job. Nothing would call you out for that job from a hiring manager's perspective. They need to be more than 3 sentences long. So you would be surprised how many we get that are like, hi, I'm Andrea Gerber. I'm an excellent fit for your position. Call me at blah, 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 blah. And this is my email. That is not an acceptable cover letter. Straight out, it's just not. So if you guys need examples of cover letters that you want, we can provide them. What I would do in strategies that I've used in the past, I prep multiple paragraphs to plug into cover letters. So you'll need an opening, right? Like, hi, I'm Andrea Gerber. I'm interested in your reservations manager position, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm an excellent fit because of my leadership, problem solving, and crisis management skills. So you would take that out of your job description. Then you could go to your stock paragraphs that you've already written on another sheet and pull them in of what you think would be the top 3 skill sets that they would be looking for. And then you wrap it up at the end with, because of these skill sets, I think I'm an excellent candidate, please contact me at blah, 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 blah. So there is some stock stuff that you can do. We put some things here of what I guess would have in my stock pile of kind of things for my cover letters, some of your leadership skills. So some of those of you who are, building managers or reservations managers, and how you worked and led your teams, how problem solving. So these aren't always bullets on your resume. Sometimes you can talk about things and skill sets that you have on your cover letter that wouldn't 100% be a translatable bullet. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So working in a diverse environment and what you've learned from, collaboration, crisis management, some of your technical experience. So any others that you guys would think of for good kind of prep paragraphs to have?
One thing I think that helps a lot in a cover letter is to do the very simple act of looking up the company you're looking for's mission statement and relate one of your skills to an exact sentence or phrase or keyword that they use in their mission statement. It not only shows them that you took the 60 seconds of initiative to look more into them, but that you're also marketing yourself for them directly.
Absolutely. That's a really good one. It's going to take time. Alyssa and I were joking the other day, like, job searching is a full-time job. You can spend 30, 40 hours a week. I've had spreadsheets of every application that I have put in before. Sometimes you're lucky and you fill out a couple and you get hired and you're good to go. Sometimes it's not that easy. For my first full-time position, I have a stack of resumes that I still keep in my basement in a folder to remind me of, like, sometimes it takes grit. And I just have a stack of denial letters that I got from all of the institutions that I applied for out of graduate school that didn't want me. And sometimes that serves as a little bit of motivation for me of, like, moving forward. So anybody have any other tips on cover letters?
I know. Can you hear me
Yep.
this time? Okay. I started talking back in the resume section and something was beeping my mic and no one heard it. But something super simple, and I know something I've embarrassingly done on more than one occasion. Proofread and double check your cover letters multiple times, because there have been more than once I've sent one out and it's to the wrong company or some other, like, super glaring wrong thing. And as soon as I realized, oh crap, I sent the wrong cover letter or the wrong version or whatever, it's like immediately you're not getting considered for that job. So proofread it once, proofread it twice, proofread it the third time. Make sure you're sending it to the right company.
Yeah. Been there, done that too. Like, have somebody, that's another, like, on the book, have somebody look at it for you. Another set of eyes, just a quick glance, your roommate, your girlfriend, whoever it is, have them peek at it so you know that you're submitting it accurately.
In the
Sorry.
same vein, oh, sorry, Yakub.
No, go ahead.
In the same vein as Mike, just when you are reading through it, one thing that has always helped me is reading it out loud, whether to somebody or just alone to myself. Um, if you start to feel like fatigued or something as you're reading it out loud, you're like, oh, maybe I've got a run-on sentence. So knowing how it sounds when spoken has always helped me maybe, rephrase or rewrite whatever it is that I'm sending in. So
Yeah, Coop, did you have something?
I was gonna say when you save it, make sure you have something appropriate saved because you're gonna upload that and send that to other people as well. So you make sure you have the when you save it, you save some like something appropriate or
So we see that. So as a hiring manager in our system, we'll see if you upload it once, twice. There, like we can see, sometimes you can go back in and replace or update your resume. We could see the previous versions. And then, like Yakub said, making sure it's saved like in an appropriate, put your name, like what it's saved as. Resume is not helpful to us because sometimes when we're digging through some of them, it's easy for us to find it if it says like Katie Beaulieu resume and the date, that I can find it in the background of some of these systems. So something as simple as that could get you out of a pool because they searched it and they couldn't find your resume in their system because it was titled resume, right? Not Nick Boyd's resume or whatever. So, all right, we'll move on. Any other questions about cover letters? We worked really hard to find these memes, particularly Alyssa, so I hope that you enjoy them.
Yeah. Yakub walked by me in the office one day and I was laughing out loud to myself and he said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm finding really funny COVID memes." So I hope at least one of you thinks that a few of them are funny.
I'm enjoying them right now. I'm not gonna
Good.
lie.
I'm glad. I think that there was a really good video. I don't know if it was like a TikTok video or something from Instagram of a girl who was submitting her final project for a class and she had saved it as like this effing stupid project and then forgot to change it and submitted it. And it was like her final grade. It was like the only thing that was graded for the entire semester. So like, be careful what you're doing. That really does make a difference. So yeah, but I remember seeing that when you guys were talking about that, that reminded me of it. The next thing that we're going to talk about is networking. And in general, networking is done a little bit differently than how we're seeing it right now in COVID. But it is building and maintaining relationships, whether those are your personal friendships with people, something academically, with a professor or a teaching assistant that you've had, professionally, with all of us professional staff or different people that in the building, and even familial. Sometimes you don't want to say it, but who or who your family knows can be very helpful in a job search, and just making those connections with people. It's sometimes a very unfortunate thing for other people, but if your family knows the right people, it can help you get in the door. So just making those connections with, your uncle who does that one thing that you're interested in or whatever it might be, those are important relationships to maintain. And then utilizing resources available to you. Yeah, like Bobby said, having a student sibling work at the student center is really helpful. So using resources available to you, that's a good one right there. Whether it's supervisors or university provided, Wayne State puts out a lot of different things that are available to people for networking and different career fairs and internship fairs and different things like that. It's all there and available. You just have to take the time to do it and utilize it. And I think a really big thing to know and remember in networking is that it's a continuous process. It's not something that, oh, I'm graduating in a month, I better start networking, because I'm going to need a job. It's something that you want to work on and continue to do, so that you have those connections ready when you need them. Whether it's just chatting it up with us is, we see how your day's going and you take the time to talk with us, we can be really great references for you. I'm sure that Danny is a great example of that. I think that a few people on the professional staff served as references for him before he left for his new job. So maintaining those is a really big thing and will help you go a long way.
Can I just add something too about these familial relationships, right?
Yeah.
The more you talk to your supervisors and to us and let us know what you're searching for, and we may use our families, use us as your connection. Not everyone, you don't have to just rely on your uncle, right? That's a great resource or whatever, but use my uncle, use Katie's dad, use, whatever it is that we can do to help. All of us are willing to help you. And whether that's even just a conversation that we can connect you with, of like, if you're really interested in being a heart surgeon, I can connect you with my cousin who's a heart surgeon that might just chat about his experience and how he built his practice or whatever it may be. We're all willing to do that for you. So consider all of us an extension of your, families that can help you get connected to people in the fields that you're interested in.
So with keeping in mind what like everything looks like right now and how everything is turned from in-person to virtual, navigating networking virtually, because, I haven't seen some of you in person since almost a year ago now, right? Like it's hard to keep those connections going. So we wanted to go a little bit into some virtual tips and tricks and just things to keep in mind. Kyle, yeah, I thought this was a really good one because it's super true. We've all been there for that first one and you're like, okay, I'm all ready to go. And I mean, I'm in sweats today. So here I am, 14th day of Zoom meetings. It's actually day 312, if any of you were wondering, since we went home. My friend and I have kept an updated log of daily activities during all of this. So 312 day of Zoom meetings looks like this. But that's something to keep in mind in a virtual world, right? It might be the day whatever that you've been on a Zoom meeting, but it might be day one for someone that you're meeting or talking with professionally, and you want to make sure that you're putting the right foot forward and presenting yourself in a way that it makes sense. So going along that, we've talked about virtual meetings a lot and we've gone over different things, but I think it's something super important to keep in mind because if you are networking with people that you haven't met before and it's like Andrea's uncle or her cousin who is that heart surgeon and you're going to set up a meeting with them, you need to be comfortable setting up a meeting, whether it's through Zoom or Teams or whatever it might be. So knowing how to do it, how do you set up a meeting and a password and send that out? And how does the waiting room work? There's all these stories of kids whose teachers are late and they're just sitting in the waiting room, or the kid signed in late. I think Andrea had that happen the other day. The kid signed in 5 minutes late and they just sat in a waiting room for 45 minutes because the teacher didn't go back and check. So just understanding how that works. And screen sharing. I don't know how many times I've been in a meeting now and we've now done this for 312 days and people are like, can you see my screen? So just being comfortable knowing that when you hit screen share, it is typically working. Teams is a little harder than Zoom. Personally, I think that's something to consider. And then another really important thing is thinking about your background and surroundings. And I intentionally sat in my office today so that we can highlight the difference between where Andrea is sitting and where I'm sitting. So if you look at Andrea, she's got her wall's a little funky, but it's a really neutral background, right? There's not a lot going on behind her. It's pretty much a solid color. Whereas I've got a Yoda hat, a baby Yoda doll, a rubber chicken, and a Chewbacca mask wearing Wonder Woman sunglasses behind me. If I'm meeting with someone professionally, that might not be the best thing to have up there. Now, the rubber chicken does make a really good conversation piece. I've had people be like, what's that blue thing up there? I'm like, oh, it's this rubber chicken that I brought home from work. And I tell the story of it, but that might not be the appropriate thing if you're trying to meet someone and do a job interview, right? Be sure that you test what it looks like on camera. I know Katie's had issues with different wall colors, trying to do the fun Zoom backgrounds, she just disappears. So being aware and cognizant of that. And then ambient noise, I've got a dog and she barks and things will happen when you're in these meetings, but just trying to mitigate that ahead of time is something that's really important.
So I'll add too, Megan might want to say this, but so when Megan interviewed with us, we didn't have the funds to fly her in at that time. So this was pre-COVID and we did a Zoom interview with Megan, and she interviewed with us in one of the sessions, and she had this like tree kind of set up in the background. And then it was like a session later and the tree was gone, and all of us noticed it. So it kind of just, but I don't know, Megan, I think Megan was trying to switch up her background or make it, or was getting in her way, or I have no idea why, but
I legitimately moved like 6 inches and but that made enough of a difference.
So the interviewers notice these things, like we see it, and our brains, I went to this really great session a while ago about backgrounds. Well, it was about Zoom meetings and stuff and being a leader, but it takes, and when you go into a normal room and you're interviewing, you can look around the room, you get your senses of where you're at, and then you can focus in and meet. When you're on Zoom, you're looking at everyone's background. I'm looking at Alyssa's, squeaky thing in the background, and Megan's at the info desk, and Katie has this in her background, and Yakub's on a couch, and so my mind is like racing of all these things. I have to look at all the surroundings and every single screen before I can then focus back on the meeting. So just making sure that you're not the distraction when you're interviewing and or connecting with people, and making sure you have a nice clean background that's easy on the eye.
So they're all simple things, but all those little things add up, and like testing it and making sure stuff works ahead of time is really important, and that like you can hear people. For me, Zoom is really quiet if I'm just on my laptop. So I either have to be connected to a second screen with a speaker soundbar so I can hear people appropriately, or I have to have a headset on, because otherwise I'm like, I can't hear you. And then, they're looking at just my eyeballs. So just knowing that ahead of time is really helpful in maintaining that professional manner.
And for clarification, we did test the video prior to. And
and then it all hit the fan. So, sometimes it's like that. Also, just so you know, if you mute yourself and you're the one playing the video, it messes with the sound. Okay, just so everybody's aware, don't do that. But another important thing to do is to consider updating online profiles for networking. And I'm going to focus on LinkedIn, but know that a hiring manager is going to look at different online platforms for you. When I was working at my previous job, I did a lot of helping with hiring of our guide staff. And the guy that I worked with, he's in his 50s and he does not have Facebook, and he's not into the internet and stuff. Like I call him Old Man River. Like he's really outdoorsy and stuff, but he'd be like, hey, pull this person up, Facebook them. Like, what do they look like? Do they look like they like the outdoors? Like, so even if we couldn't see their full profile because I wasn't friends with them, like hiring managers look at that stuff. So just being aware of what you're putting out there to the public and to everybody, and making sure that like your profile picture looks like you and stuff. So I'm going to focus on LinkedIn because it does seem to be more job and internship and that type related. But the profile photo, one thing you want to consider is making sure it's a recent photograph of you, and it's professional and catered to the field that you want to go in. So if you were to log into LinkedIn right now, if you have a profile and look up me, I actually have a profile photo that was a professional headshot from someone in Arizona, and I'm wearing like outdoor gear. I have like a trucker hat on, and I've got like a backpack, and I just haven't updated it. I probably should. It's not really relevant to what I do now, but it's definitely something that I should update, even though it was a professional headshot. I've got some now that Nick Board took that I can easily put up. I just haven't done it. And thankfully, Andrea and Katie still liked me, even though I look like a fool in mine. And then in LinkedIn, you can do a bio for yourself, making sure that that isn't a novel, right? Like we don't want to write 6 paragraphs about ourselves. Keep it 5 sentences or less. Just highlight your strengths and things that you're really good at, what you're looking for. Make that relevant, because that's the first thing that people, if they're looking at your LinkedIn profile, are going to read. So make it something that catches their eye and is something that they are like, oh, that person's interesting, or they've got this really great skill that lures them in. And then updating your work experience. So if you've updated your resume, it's really easy to pull the bullets and the different things that you've put in there put it into LinkedIn, and keep that up to date. And so like Yakub said, make sure you're putting the most relevant one up top and then going down from there chronologically, but making sure that you're keeping that up to date. You know, now you've got some really great COVID related things that you could put in there, that you now know how to do different confrontations with people. And that shows that you've got different people skills and people want to look at that. And then this is a good place to put some extra stuff in, like milestones and achievements that you might be interested in, or that you've done. It's a really good place to put that might not fit on your resume, because if you go interview for a job position, it's entirely likely that someone's going to look at your LinkedIn profile before they interview you. That's happened to me on numerous occasions, that I didn't accept a job before I took the one here at Wayne State. And like, I got a notification on my phone as I was going up the elevator to meet with this woman that she had just looked at my LinkedIn profile. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm like, keeping that stuff up to date is really important. And then another cool thing is that you can do with LinkedIn is network with people. So liking, if I'm interested in the sports and entertainment field, I'm getting my MBA and concentrating in that. So liking like the Detroit Pistons and all the different sports teams that I'm interested in, they post really cool opportunities on there, whether it's different job openings or internships or virtual things that they're doing. They post that on there versus just trying to find a recruiter for that. So following the different things that you're interested in and reaching out to people within the LinkedIn network is a really good way to get yourself out there and learn new things. Does anyone else have anything to add? Andrea, I saw you unmute yourself earlier.
Yeah, I would just say sometimes when you're job searching, you might just go back through, not everyone's on Facebook, go back through some of your social media stuff, probably take off the inappropriate parties that you were at. Like, just give it a once over. You can delete some stuff from your past. We all potentially had fun in college. Like, I'm sure I probably have some things out there that I don't want hiring managers to see. Like,
Oh, did she freeze for everybody else?
in a positive light. Okay.
Thanks.
'Cause
You
we do
froze for a
search.
second, but we got the gist.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'll just admit, I search everybody when I hire them. Like, I searched Megan, I searched Alyssa, like I search them all. Because I want to know who I'm hiring. I'm making an investment, a really expensive investment in an employee, and I want to make sure that I'm not hiring somebody that I am uneasy about. So.
Well, I would say alternatively, you guys should be, if you're on those networks, you should be searching the people you're interviewing with too, to get to know them, see their face, because they're also putting out their social media persona too. So it goes both ways, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Katie. And like, it's a really good way to potentially have a extra little piece of conversation that you could bring up. You know, maybe you see a picture of them in a certain location and you've been there, and you could say, hey, you know, I recently was on this trip, or I did this thing and I saw that you did that as well. And it shows that you've taken the initiative. Like Emma said, taking the 60 seconds to look up someone's, like a company's mission statement so that you have that relevant in your cover letter. It's the same type of thing for an interview. It's a good way to have a piece of conversation and not just like awkward sit there silence. All right. And another thing that has occurred because of COVID that allows different networking possibilities and different things that you can put on your resume or onto your LinkedIn thing is there's a lot of free online media that was not free previously, right? So LinkedIn, I don't know how much time any of you've spent on it, but they have a ton of webinars and workshops that they put out and that they promote for different things, for different areas and arenas and stuff that you could just go to. They're usually 30 minutes to an hour at most, and they're completely free. And you just sit there, and some of them are like move at your own pace through it, but some of them are live. So you can sit for an hour during lunch and get a really cool workshop done on resume building. There's a lot of different topics that they do, but LinkedIn's always got a ton of them that they promote and that they put out. And another fun thing is that all of the Ivy League schools have started offering free classes, not all of their classes, but they've got certain ones that you can take. And it might be a really cool thing that you can put like attended this seminar from Harvard on your, LinkedIn profile or on your resume, or something that you could bring up in conversation that you wouldn't have ever been able to do before. And I know that all Ivy League schools are doing that. Was something that I was reading about in Business Insider for a class. So there's a lot of topics that you can cover too. And it's not just like the history of rocks or something that no one has an interest in. It's stuff that like is actually relevant to the fields that we're all going into. And I know we talked about this way back at the beginning of the like stay-at-home stuff, but there's virtual tours of museums and historical sites that are out there, and like more and more keeps getting added as this has gone on. And I think that that's something that is important to consider, because again, it could be a really good point of conversation in an interview or in just getting to know someone new if they talk about that. Like you could say, oh yeah, I saw that you lived in Paris for a year. I toured the Louvre because of all the stuff that's available. And it's a good way to make a connection with people. And then I actually got an email 2 days before we did this presentation. Wayne State is doing a ton of stuff and free webinars and different workshops that are available that you can find on their social media. It's not something that like is just, you can just stumble upon it, but if you follow them on social media, they promote different things within the Detroit community and different job offerings and internship offerings that you can find by following Wayne State on social media, which I think is a pretty fun thing. And Kyle put a really good thing about computer science in the chat. So, talk to each other about that. There's a lot of different stuff that's available right now that wouldn't have been free without COVID. So it's like a mini silver lining to COVID that we can all appreciate. Does anyone have any other fun online stuff that you found? I personally like to watch the zoo videos every once in a while. Watching the otters play is my favorite. All right. Another really good thing to do during this time is to reconnect with people. I know that sounds weird because we're not supposed to be seeing people in person and getting in groups, but you can reconnect virtually. I have taught my mom how to do video chats during all of this. And so now we talk to each other via video, which is a lot of fun. But it's a good way to reach out to former coworkers, whether it's someone who is a supervisor from the past or other student workers that you just haven't talked to in a while, and just say, hey, how's it going? I just spoke with Vivian, who worked with Chris and I for the past couple of summers. And apparently I'm not friends with her on Facebook, and I missed the fact that she got a full-time job, and Andrea just was like, yeah, she got that. But, I reached out to her just to see how she's doing and what's going on. Because Chris and I are maybe going to hire someone to work for us again in the summer. So we were just talking about, oh, we miss Vivian. I wonder how she's doing. And, we've both served as references for her different jobs. So that is a really good way to keep that connection open. Another thing that is a really good way to get a potential connection in the field you're interested in is contacting alumni of Wayne State. I think most of you know Chris Bowen. Some of you who are newer hires might not, but she's the woman that I work with for summer conferences. She's a Wayne State alum, and she, to me, is like the epitome of a great Wayne State alum. She's super invested in Wayne State and the success of the students and giving back to Wayne State. And I think that that's something that I've seen through a lot of different alumni that I've interacted with from Wayne State. They will all want to see everyone do well and succeed and help bring them into their field. And so even if it's someone you've never met, you could always write someone if they're, a great engineer that they've done something that you're interested in. You could write to them and just say, hey, I'm in the engineering field and I'm really interested in this project that you worked on. Would you mind talking with me about it for 15 minutes? And they could potentially open up a door for an internship or a job for you. It's a really good thing to do and look at. And like I said, I think Wayne State in particular, the alumni seem to be like super invested in helping the students in Detroit succeed. And then another good one is current and past professors. It's a little more difficult right now to get to know your professor because we're not seeing them in person necessarily, but just opening up that chain of communication, they can open a lot of doors. I have talked to one of my past professors that I just liked how organized she was. And she's got a lot of different opportunities for different you know, workshops and networking things that I can do with the sports industry, which is cool. And even if it's something I don't go into in the future, it's just a really fun experience to like talk with someone who runs operations for the Pistons and that kind of thing that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not talked to this professor. And Katie said it's a great time to do informational interviews. Like if you are interested in a specific company, look up the people and reach out to them. A lot of people might have that extra 15, 20 minutes that they'd sit down and chat with you for coffee or over lunch or something. You never know where it'll lead. So does anyone else have anything along those lines? Cool. And I know Katie sent this out, but I wanted to highlight it again because there is the Wayne State Virtual Career Fair Week coming up, and there's 3 specific ones that are highlighted, but like University Career Services is doing one, Illich has got their own, and then engineering has their own. But there's a lot of different opportunities available and different companies that come to these and look for attendance at them. And if you haven't used Handshake that's available through Wayne State, there's a ton of stuff posted on there. Anyone has access who's a student, you just log in with your credentials. There's internships, there's job opportunities, there's networking events, there's webinars. It's all in there. And that's how you can register for this too. But it's definitely something to consider and look into. It's worth your time and effort. Because like I said earlier, it's not something that you scramble for when you're, oh crap, I need a job in 2 weeks. Otherwise I have no money. It's stuff that takes time and it's worth putting in the effort.
And I would just add that universities are spending a lot of money on new technology related to fairs. So whether that be table fairs like DOSO is offering, virtual career fairs here. So this isn't just a Zoom meeting that you go on and get to learn about people. You will be actually assigned into a conversation with somebody that matches your interests. It's a very kind of thorough, extensive process that might even be more comfortable and less intimidating than walking around a big loud fair with everybody else. So this might be your chance to really shine by having a new format and by doing it in a different way. So please don't think that this is like they're just doing this for the sake of doing it and it's not thorough and intentional. Like this is a very different type of system that they've adapted to make sure that you all have your chance to get in front of these companies.
That's a really great point, Katie. I was actually on a meeting this morning. I'm part of a group on campus that's that deals with the K through 12 camps and conferences that come on like mostly during the summer months. But it's something that like different groups on campus are investing in and putting together. So it's definitely something that could be a part of it going forward. I know admissions is going to utilize it where, you know, they might pre-record a session and then they play it, and during it, they're available in a chat to answer questions and be there available. So it's not something that is likely to go away. It's probably going to continue for a while. So getting comfortable with these now is a really good way to showcase yourself and shine, like Katie said. All right. If no one has any questions, we're going to our announcements. Andrea?
Yeah, I guess I just opened the floor for a second.
Yeah.
Did we lose y'all? Are y'all sleeping? Any questions about resumes, cover letters, networking that we can cover? I know we actually went a little longer than we had planned, but.
So I have a slight general question just to bring it to attention, I guess. Do you know if Wayne State is still doing the clothing cube that they did last year where you could get free professional business wear?
I don't know that.
Yeah, I actually looked into it recently, Kyle, because I wanted to make a donation when I moved. And the person that was previously in charge of it actually no longer works at Wayne State. And I don't know with COVID if that is picked up again. So I can look into it further and get back to you guys, post in the staff group. But just because we're virtual doesn't mean that need isn't still there. So I can definitely get more information.
Okay. Yeah, because that was a huge resource.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I will just put it out there that we're always available if you do have questions as you guys move throughout. It's not just right now. So even in 2 years, when you're still, working for us and still when you're ready, we're ready for you. So let's go into some of these announcements here.
Okay.
Okay, so we will be hosting the vaccine clinic in the building. we've been chosen as a site we're going to be using the Hillberries coming up. I believe our first reservation is February 4th. We're going to see how this goes. And then we may be the permanent home of the large scale, like mass vaccination clinics on campus. So at this point, we still don't have our names necessarily on a list to get vaccinated. The vaccine on February 4th that's scheduled is actually the people that are coming it's their second shot. That they already got their first, and this is their booster or the second one in their vaccine, I don't know, lifespan or whatever they have to do too. So, but I think it's a really positive thing that we've been chosen to help with this. So I know that we went over some of the details of it in our staff meeting. So we'll be setting up the space, and hopefully that the Hillberries will become a permanent COVID vaccine location that we help people on campus get vaccinated. So we just wanted to give you all an update. I do want you all to know in general about vaccines that we are advocating as much as we possibly can to have all of us as essential staff on the vaccination list. So as soon as I get word that it's our turn is up, we will then start making those available through the health center for you guys. That is one thing that we asked all the supervisors to connect with you all on, is making, so that we know who on our team, A, has already gotten the vaccine, B, who wants the vaccine, right? So I want to be an advocate for you if you want the vaccine. I need to know that. And then the other is if you're not comfortable with the vaccine too, or you're unsure, or you have more questions, we can help follow up and get you the resources you need to make that decision whether you want that vaccine or not. It's not going to be, as of now, I've not heard at all that it will be required. It'll be an option, but as essential staff on campus, we may have an opportunity to get that. So we want to be prepared when we do have that. COVID test reminders, please. You guys were required to have at least one a month. There are a few of you that aren't eligible for them for a variety of reasons or health reasons, but please communicate and work with your supervisors on that. If you haven't done it for January, we need you to do that to make sure that we're doing our regular testing requirements on campus. Esports and game room is opening in early February, so that's exciting. Mike has been working on hiring so that we can be prepared and ready to open now that the governor's restrictions are off of arcades and areas like our game room. So that will be early February, so as soon as we are ready. And then the next staff training is February 19th at 3 p.m. Is there any other updates or announcements or questions on the announcements? No? All righty, I think then we will go into our breakout sessions.
Sounds good. I will send everyone off. So we have planned to continue with some conversation until about 4:30. So we'll send everybody there. Andrea, do you want to go somewhere?
No.
Okay.
Bye.